Under provisions of the public meeting law of the state of Missouri, the board must adopt by roll call vote an agenda that includes the time, date, place, and tentative agenda for the meeting. A duly executed waiver and consent to hold this study session will be signed by the Board of Education. A copy of the notice and the agenda for this meeting was posted on Friday, August 16, 2013 in the Administration Center, 1005 Waterford Drive, Florissant, Missouri. At the same time, a copy was posted on the school district website.
So moved that we
Second. Been moved and seconded. We adopt the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion to add the transfer students as part of the agenda.
Second.
Move that we add an agenda item of transfer students.
I'd also like to make that the first item and move the strategic planning to the second item. I have a motion to do that.
Second. So we're going to add an agenda item of transfer students. We're going to move agenda item number 4, strategic plan, to item number 3, and move board meetings down. Or mine, it'll still be 4, I guess. Move board meetings to 5.
Would you repeat that?
3 becomes 5.
So transfer students would be the first item.
Excuse me?
Transfer students
Yes.
would be first item.
Transfer
Should be
students,
3.
strategic plan, and board meetings in that order.
Okay, so the strategic plan stays put.
Mr. Chabot? Yeah.
Mr. Ebert.
Aye.
Mr. Brown.
Aye.
Short.
Aye.
Mr. Hogshead.
Aye.
Secretary votes aye. Mr. Martinez. And Mr. Morris.
Hi. All right. This segment on transfer students is here to update us on the status of transfer students and to answer any questions that the board might have in regards to that. So, Dr. McCoy, you want to give us your update?
Sure. First, good evening, everybody. It's good to see you all. I know that we've had a lot of emails over the weekend, and so I'm going to ask for any questions about the update because I know that there were a few by email. If there are any questions that anyone has, and I'm just going to start by just sharing what's on the website. So if you go to the district main website, you click on information for non-resident students or for the court case that led to this change. The case is here, the transfer for student enrollment comparisons is there, and it shows the entire general public as of the date mentioned, the number of students that are in every grade level, every school in the district, 426 students total, transfer students. It shows the total enrollment for the district, 11,840 students. In June, we met in a study session, and actually, for this very purpose, Cindy Ormsby, our attorney, was here. We had a policy change, discussed it, and actually since that point onward, the staff and I have been implementing very successfully, I might add, an amazing job of serving every family and enrolling students. And we have seamlessly done that. I have to give Amy Ketchatory a lot of credit for having the most smooth enrollment out of the entire period of enrollment in this district, of making a real awesome process. That was featured on Channel 5 or 4, where they called us. They actually didn't call us. They just came in unbeknownst to us with a parent who was just getting back from overseas and just played gotcha. None of us knew ahead of time. I was in Jefferson City, so I wasn't here, and I saw Dr. Diggs on TV and this parent on TV for the process. And actually, the journalist tweeted, smooth this process around. So this is the impact, and I pretty much will entertain questions about that, but here are the placements. There's
If
a
you have a written copy of that, it would be much easier for me to see than trying to read it off there.
Sure, I can press print on these, and Dr. Jadali can go behind there. It should print in that side room. I'll print off a few copies for you to see. And so beyond this, in addition on this website is the class-by-class comparisons. So this is the total enrollment for every grade level in every school. This is available to everybody in the general public, and of course was emailed to the board as well. This was done on Saturday. The first time it was done, it shifted all the columns up, which Dr. Fahadli emailed the board. But this is active, no discrepancies, as mentioned, pointed out, for number of teachers per classroom, and then the grade level next to it, which we are constantly changing every day. I want to thank Amy Joyce and Dr. Diggs and Nicole Weissel and Amy Ketchler for meeting at 2 o'clock or 2:30 every day since the 15th of July to make adjustments based off of class sizes, which is also indicated on this, well, usually is indicated on that very page. And then here's the class-by-class breakdown for the first time ever. I'm gonna use elementary as the best example, but for K through 12, every section, every class in the district, with the total class and a breakout of students with special needs only, as requested by Rob Chabot on Saturday or Friday. So going down to, and that's available to the general public. If you go to elementary where the numbers in the classes are more uniform, that's what we'll scroll down to, you can see, you can connect these numbers to the overall enrollment numbers. There's a lot of high school students and a lot of high school classes, so you gotta go down middle school, elementary school. So for instance, grade by grade, class by class, making sure that the sections are at not above the DESI ceilings, which I call the DESI ceilings or DESI minimums, and still striving towards DESI desirable, smaller class sizes. What are the DESI ceilings? 25 students in a kindergarten first grade class and second grade class, 27 students in third, fourth, 30 students in fifth, sixth, 33 students in 7th through 12th. Those are the DESI ceilings. And these numbers should all be at that or below that. And if they're not, on the day that another student enrolls to cause it to happen, we are forced to make 3 options. Add an aide, add a teacher, or instruction coach, or move a student from their home school to another school, an overage, or move a transfer from that school to another school, which would be just a transfer over.
When you say I'm sorry.
Those DESI
Elementary, yeah.
The DESI numbers are kindergarten, first and second grade, and Dr. Diggs, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Diggs, but kindergarten, first and second grade, 25 students. Then third and fourth grade, 27 students. And then fifth and sixth grade, 30 students. And 7th grade through 12th grade, 33 students. That's the DESI ceiling. I have to say at the high school level, what I did was I used 31 students as a ceiling and said to Nicole Weissel, base our numbers and placements off of 31 and not 33 for 2 reasons. Class size being smaller than 850 square feet is better for a smaller number than 33 just for physical capacity fire code. That's point 1. Point 2, 33 kids in high school is not conducive to the best learning, in my opinion. So we went below the DESI ceilings, even for the placements of transfers, as we made each of those decisions on the other page.
What about our desirable level that we talked about and voted on last time? I thought we were going to try to stay with that, not DESI ceiling.
Okay, so the policy that we adopted and the desirable level, the desirable DESI level is still the same desirable DESI level, and we wish to be there. We are striving to be there. We are adding staffing to classes that are high, and when we do that, you get those lower levels that were shown on the screen, which are closer to desirables, 23, 24 students per class, 22 students per class. But again, as emailed to everybody, funding dictates us getting 100% desirable. In light of not passing Proposition A, it makes it very difficult to have the district be at the desirable level while increasing students. So the short answer is that we are adding students, adding teachers to classes, to try to have desirable levels as much as possible. However, again, with funding being low, it will not be 100% desirable. We've never been 100% desirable in the times I've been here, but we're still striving to do so. So I'll take any of the specific questions that you may have. Leslie, here's my one copy. I have 2 copies of the class by class. Since the printouts, I don't know if they brought it out. Oh, they did? Okay, good. I didn't see that. All right, cool. So, but I'll take any other questions. I know I sent the board an email from Don Cinti, which he sent to all the superintendents and Kristen Castro about the legalities of accepting students, not accepting students, and proceed at your own risk. And I just have to say that the previous actions that we made as a school district and as a board has positioned us to not be in any legal fray. We were not in the 30-person lawsuit petition that the Children's Alliance helped 60 parents actually start the petition to sign with Millville for reducing class sizes. We were not in that. Actually, I met with Pam Sloan from Francis Howell on Saturday, and she informed me that they're not a part of that either, because they're continuing to enroll students who apply through the process. And in that email, it stated how 60 applications were lost or missing by review and Norman. And so those are the ones that are still coming in very slowly, 1 or 2 a day. Amy Ketchator's office is seeing it, and not even 1 or 2 a day. We had maybe 1 today, maybe 1 person, and that date from that application was within the guidelines, and so they were technically lost. That's proof that they were lost. Somehow they got found. But other than that, that's about all I have to report. I think we're within the application guidelines that we were told that we were going to receive, and not any.
So on this sheet, this shows total enrollment. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, there. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so the total enrollment on this one. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up. Go ahead.
As you get there. So it's total enrollment by grade level, right?
Right. Yes. Sir.
But the rule to follow by DESE is by classroom. So it's, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because like, so for instance, I look at Airport Elementary, and in 3rd grade, there's 39 kids. So no matter how
Yes.
no matter how I do the math, we're good there, right?
Right,
But
that's
some of these instances, I look at Duchenne, and in 2nd grade, there's 65.
Right.
So depending on
Okay.
how we do it,
So-
you know what I'm saying?
so-
We really, I think to understand it, maybe I'm just
So, no.
slow.
No.
But I think I need it by classroom.
Right. So that's what this other. That's what.
Can we get
So that's
that
what
one?
this one is, and I'll print that out.
Can we just get
sometime.
that? Yeah.
Not all the documents.
Yeah, I know. Just that page.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. So this page here, which is. Which page is that? So I'll print page 4. Page 3. All right, so I'm printing page 3 and 4. Page 3 and 4 shows you the breakdown with just student numbers and then how many teachers they have next to it. And then that you're looking at is class by class by class.
Got it.
But they're not certified teachers, so when you have 2, does that mean they're certified teachers, or they're instructional aides, or they're teachers' aides?
They're certified teachers when it says 2. When it says 0.5, then it can be an aide.
No, those, I'm sorry to
All of
interrupt.
them are
Those are
certified?
all certified
All certified.
teachers.
Thank you, Amy. So everyone on this sheet is certified.
So we have no aides?
We have aides, if you'll look at our current enrollment, where we have negative home spaces available, which I don't know if it's on that report, but a good example would be vote, because we just talked about vote and Holman today. So if you go to vote, you will see that vote has, could you please scroll down just a little bit more? Thank you. Vote has 31 students. On our report, what we will see is a -6. So that tells us that we are 6 students over our max, and we most likely need to bust it up the grade level and hire another teacher. In the interim, we have put either a supplemental substitute or a grade level 8 to support that kindergarten teacher. After we get all of our drops, then we'll know what students are going to be with us, and then we'll make the decision to break the class up.
When is that?
We're meeting tomorrow. Dr. McCoy has requested that everybody do their drops. On an annual basis, we typically wait 10 school days. That's a good indicator. But we moved that deadline up. Today, we made decisions to hire a kindergarten teacher for Vote and a kindergarten teacher for Holman, a classroom teacher at Combs, and Commons Lane 6th grade. So we made those staffing decisions today. Interviews are going to take place this week. But in the interim, we're putting supports in place because, as I indicated earlier, we don't want to be too aggressive with our staffing, because if we lose, we just got 5 drops today while we were sitting in a meeting. We don't want to be too aggressive with our staffing because then we might be overstaffed. So that's, within the next week, we'll be making some solid decisions.
Yes, sir.
And from my experience, having been in the classroom since '72, is this any different from any other year in terms of how we mess with the staffing and the drops and the absence of?
No different at all, except for we're moving faster and it's better than other years. In typical years, you wait 10 days to do any additions or changes to staff. When you drop anybody who hasn't shown up for 2 weeks, then you add aides, add teachers, add staff. The difference is that we've been adding teachers, staff since day one of school based off of people who may call, make statements to board members, make statements to other people. We've been adding staff every day. As emailed to the board, 8 staff on the first day of school, or 8, and that's different, a lot quicker.
So would it be fair to say that this process has happened, you've been superintendent 3 years now, this is your 3rd year?
Right.
Every year this has happened?
That's correct.
Adding, subtracting, and dropping?
That's
We haven't looked at it, but this has happened every year.
That is totally correct.
But this is the first year we've had over 400 new enrollees,
That's true.
right? Okay, I mean, that's.
How many would we have
Really
had?
different.
How many would we have had last year?
All right, so that's a great question. Amy would be the expert, but I elaborate to this. But here's the bottom line. Every year, Amy's office has enrolled about 3,000 students. Every year. And this year, she has enrolled about 3,000 students. The difference is 400 of those 3,000 are not residents in this district. So, and then the other, what you see and should see is a decline of about 100 students every year in enrollment, but that never changes admissions process from having to enroll about 3,000 students. And you can elaborate if you would.
I have a question for Amy Joyce. The
Yes.
5 that you dropped, that were dropped today, just today, were those our students or were those transfer students? I know they're all ours, but were they districts?
I'd have to defer to Amy Ketchtori.
They were transfer students.
Are we still accepting new students? I heard that even today, we still had a large influx of transfer students that are coming in. Have we did a stop date that we're no longer accepting transfer students?
Amy can elaborate, but there was not a large influx of transfer students today. There was one transfer application today. And that one application, correct me if I'm wrong, was within the time frame that the parents were given, which was through August 1st. So there were 60+ applications lost, misplaced on the part of CSD, Riverview, Norman. Those are the ones that's been trickling in. But, and anytime we get an application or a person who wants to enroll that's not from that process, I personally type the email on her phone, having her respond to CSD and Riverview and other districts to say, send them back to Riverview or Normandy for two important reasons. We can't enroll anybody that hasn't been confirmed as residents there because we wouldn't get paid for them. That's part one. Point two, I know that Riverview and Normandy will not want to validate that they should come here and have us take more of their money because Normandy's already projected to be closed by February, and Riverview has more money, but they don't want to lose their students. So
That's moved up now.
it's
It was
been-
April.
That's correct. It has been moved up to about February. That's correct. So long story short, families who walk in, and Amy can say how many that's been very few, less than 5. She can give an exact number. They've been referred back to their home schools.
That's correct. And Normandy is not issuing any additional applications, so they have shut it down as of August 1. And the only applications that are coming in are Riverview applications that were lost in the process, and so that's going through CSD and kind of coming through. So we are seeing a few tricklings, but they were the lost applications.
So this number that we have now, pretty much it should just go down
That's
once we
correct.
do the drop.
It should, however, we enrolled 30 of our own residents today,
Right? It's our residents who.
It's our residents
very,
that are-
very late.
very late.
142 residents were enrolled on the first day of school.
Yes.
I remember that exact number. 142 did a walk-in on August 14th, and as many as 30 came in today. And it's been every day about that amount. A classroom load was spread throughout, whereas it was not that way with transfers. They were enrolled with every group day one enrolled.
And were these returning students or were they new students to the district that are our own residents?
We're returning, I would say, majority, but
Yes, it's about 50-50. Some of them are homeless students that reside in our district that we reevaluate each year. And then the rest is new residents coming into our district.
Dr. McCoy?
Just a point of information on looking through this. When you get to McClure North and it says there's 51 in a class, it's an American Studies class. It's a double class, and there's 2 teachers. The 51 is the total number of students, so it's 25 and a half students per teacher, so
And
it's
you'll
not.
also
I
see
think we should be
Rob's,
cutting students in half.
and Rob's request for the IEP students, there's a couple classes with, it seems like a large number of IEP students, like 6 or 7, and chances are that's a class within a class, which is a special program with a special ed teacher and all of our teachers working together with these kids.
that's correct. Exactly. Very true.
Have we enrolled any students without the proper paperwork? That's,
No, not one child.
So we wouldn't have any concern about doing our due diligence for being able to fund that child's education. And so
100% correct. There's no error there. We've done everything to include them on the DESI approved list for payments, and DESI has given us a gold star on that.
Question on, this might be for you guys, but for whomever. So I'm just kind of looking through and noticing, like, in terms of the aggregate number that we're looking for, so like if we look at a 6th grade and there's 2 classes, 2 teachers, you know, anything over 60 means we're currently over, right? And obviously that's what you're going to be looking at. So as I glance through, and obviously this hasn't been comprehensive, but I see a +4, a +4, a +7. Do we have a sense, you've added staff this week, or you're in the process of adding, which is great. Do you have a sense of how many more you'll have? Because, you know, if I look at 2 classes and they're at +7, even if half those kids drop off, you know, then so it seems like that one's probably pretty solid, that we're gonna need to add something. And again, that's just me speculating. I don't know the science of it by any stretch. But, so do we have a sense of those that, you know, that we looks like we're gonna add 4 or 14, or how many do we think?
Right, so every day we analyze and highlight, I don't know if you can see this, Chris, we put everything on a grid within our staffing, we highlight, and we continue to watch those hot spots. And if it consistently grows, and we're communicating with the principal that every child has been there every day, so the chances are we're not going to drop any more,
Right.
then that's where we're
Sure.
going to add, and that's how we added those classrooms today.
Right, I agree.
A full week,
Eh,
everybody's attended, we provided support, we continue to add in certain grade levels, so that's sending red flags to us that this is probably a go.
Right, and so some of this, I don't know if this is, so for instance, like the sheet that we have in front of us, and I'm sure, I think mine is the same, it's enrollment today, but it's teacher count through the 8th.
And that's,
So if that's,
That's,
if you tell me that's the same as of right now, then that's, I just,
that is the same, and we are not going to increase it until the Board of Education hires the person.
right.
That's exactly right. So until then, it's substitutes or aides, because board authorizes teacher district. And to your point, what you just said is 100% on the mark. Here's a chart that we use that does
That's
that
what you
math
saw.
that she was holding up.
Yeah.
And it shows how many overages, so airport -2, so that means there's 2 more kindergartens in DB, so we would naturally
Oh, yeah.
add 8.
Sorry, I'm saying pluses, you're saying
Minus
minuses.
it.
I'll use your
Right,
language.
yeah.
You got it, you got it.
That's correct.
So we'll add an aide, because it's not enough to necessarily do a teacher, or we can add a teacher. I mean, we said we'd add a teacher because I went to airports, kindergarten class in Holman, in my visit. And Holman had 28 kindergartners. They don't even know what school is, and that's just not gonna work. So 2 teachers is better, of class, 2 classes of 16 or 2 classes of 18, or 19 versus
Right.
just adding an 8. So that's what's gonna happen there and there. If you see
So you see
zero-
Johnson Wabash -8.
Right.
That's probably pretty,
That's certain, that you're gonna do.
pretty certain. Yeah.
Right, that you got it. So
And we have 3 teachers at that grade level, so one classroom teacher does not have 8 additional students
Sure,
above.
yeah, yeah.
It's distributed,
Right, that's very
so.
true. So yeah, that's Johnson Wabash. So when you see this, then you compare it to the teacher by teacher list, you're able to see how many is in every class, which is what you have to do to place each one just right.
And I never know when it's okay for just speak for myself and when I'm supposed to speak for the board, so I'm just gonna speak for myself. But I wanna make sure that it's clear that this isn't about, transfer students, this isn't about residential students, this is about students. And so it's about making sure that everyone, whoever that is, has the right, environment, to get the best education possible, right? And so, and I feel, and I think the board has expressed this as well, that, that class size is one component of that, and I know the staff agrees, so I want to make sure that, everyone understands this isn't that we're looking at this as, I want to state this delicately, this isn't a matter of transfer students, disrupting anything. It's just we have students, and it's a change, it's a larger change at the very beginning of the year than it might normally be, and so we want to make sure that we understand the scope of that, so that we're making the right decisions. I think, yeah, probably out there.
Have we run across any situations where students have applied to our district that perhaps didn't meet the requirements? They've been expelled or something from a previous district that they were trying to get in here?
I'll have to refer that to Amy Kishner. Amy Kishner, have you seen did any expelled students enroll?
Or try to.
Or try to enroll?
No, we've had a few students who were coming off long-term suspension. We had some students who were coming off long-term suspensions, they were completed. So we followed our normal process where we have a reentry hearing, a formal reentry hearing with Gary Beals to determine placement. But that's the same process that we do for any new student coming in who's coming off of a long-term suspension. And that's been maybe
Do you know
a
there's 2
handful.
classes here at North that are 45 and 46, which are science classes?
Yes.
Advanced physical systems. Fleck has one, second place. Keating has another one, 60, 45.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I talked with all the principals on Friday about their staffing needs. Most of North were in the elective areas where we were needing to have some in social studies, so I'll take a look at that right now.
Which classes did you say those were for?
Science class.
Advanced
that's
physical,
on too.
advanced physical systems.
Yeah, I see that, that is weird.
And
Oh, it
again,
must be, well, you know what, I'm thinking, you notice on the maximum, it says, the maximum is 50. On
That's what
both
now?
it says that, so I'm
Maximum.
wondering if it's a classic American studies,
yeah.
because it says,
A double load for a maximum class.
right, the maximum says 50, which we wouldn't do.
Right, so it must be.
I can leave Matt Schuller a message to find out more, but that's what my guess would be, it's 5th and 6th hour, it's a, so I'm wondering if, no? Let's see.
Kathy and,
Yeah, it's Kathy Kane and, or is it Lauren Flecky? But the fact that it's capped at 50 tells me it's a shared, one's 5th and one's 6th, so it's gotta be some sort of
Yeah,
shared class.
there's no class of 44 kids, in our school district, but, so it's either a shared class or 2 teachers, class within a class. Let's see, there are no 45.
Just trying to think of any science lab at North that would hold
We
45
never-
kids.
Yeah, we never had that exactly labs with us.
And let's talk about that for a minute. How are we on our DESE standards as far as number of kids in the size classrooms that we have, particularly at McClure South, where you have 750 square foot classrooms? I know that the DESE standard is 24 kids in an 850 square foot classroom.
Not 24, not 24.
Well, it was yesterday when I looked at it.
DESE standard 24?
Yes, 850 square feet
Yeah.
in a math class or an English class or
And that's at the high school level?
at the high school level. It's 28 at the middle school level because they're smaller, but it's 28 at the 24 at the high school level.
Yeah, DESE standards for classroom sizes or the classroom standards of in 33 students for grade 7 through 12. But the fire code standards, the fire marshal would say 31 students, which is the case at MSV is the acceptable amount with no citations. That's the language we got. And I can pull up DESE standards for you if you want to see that.
Dr. McCoy, I emailed those to you.
DESE standards. I can just do a Google for it. Google.
Oh, and I think the thing that we've got to remember, how many days of school is this? 6?
6.
In my teaching experience, we were having all kinds of class changes 4 and 5 weeks into the semester. We're talking about changes after 5 and 6 days. I mean, this is just completely normal in my 40 years of experience. And it just takes time for people to actually get their kids enrolled and find out what we're doing. And I think our concern should be is that as we have to split these classes, do we have physical room limitations in our buildings where we're not able to split those classes? That I don't know.
I agree with you, and I certainly acquiesce to your educational experience. The only thing I would say that I think is also true, that's different, is the level of attention.
Right.
And you know, I hesitated to use it, but scrutiny.
Yes.
And so I think in the absence of us communicating to folks what we know and what we're doing well and what we can do better, people assume you're doing nothing. Because if you don't tell them what's happening, then nothing must be happening. And so I think that's,
I'm saying with this being videoed,
well, I'm
looking
sure,
when this starts getting out.
both of the people watching are learning. So, but I think it's important that we can communicate what's going on in just the way that these guys are.
Has there been any impact in regards to class changes? I've had one parent bring to my attention that their teacher had recommended one of the students be transferred into an honors class, but they're unable to make that transfer because of the backlog. and they're basically gonna stay within their subject they're enrolled in at this time. So is this a direct result of the influx of students, or is this communication problem? I mean, when one teacher says, you know, Johnny, I need you in this honors class, and then the administration at the school, the guidance counselor says, no, Johnny, you're staying where you're at, because we have a lot of other people we have to get to as well.
First, let me just say, on the screen is MSEP's 5 and 4 crosswalk standards that Paul was just referencing. As far as DESI standards are concerned, they're stated there, this is desirable that Leslie was asking about, that we are striving to get towards, and this is the standard, which used to be called minimum standard, meaning a ceiling, the highest you go to, just for reference, so that you know my numbers were accurate, I was just quoting. So to your point, there's always a give and take at the high school level of pushing more students in to honors classes, which is a goal, but then once they're at 30, 31, then saying, okay, this class is closed because we don't have enough money to add another section. And so we are adding sections, meaning like Dr. Hopper was told on Friday or Saturday from myself and Nicole Weiss and others that you will be able to add 6 more classes. Not teachers for a full day, but 6 teachers will be able to teach 6 classes out of 7, a 7-class day. Right now, teachers teach 5 out of 7. They get 2 periods for planning. So we will add a section to have them teach 6 out of 7 with 1 hour of planning to alleviate the overcrowded class sizes or add another honors class. But usually those extras go to the bottom. Your algebra classes that everybody takes, or your English class that everybody takes, and not usually to the top, the class that only the top few take, like an AP class. AP has a master's degree restriction, certification restriction, and so you can't just, you have to rely on a few people that have all that to do the extra honors class, and that's when the principal says, okay, we're capped off, there's 31, can't add you to this honors AP because the teacher is already teaching 6 out of 7, or doesn't have it.
In that case, the teacher is teaching the lower level class as well as the honors class.
Right.
And he's saying, I have space in my honors class and I want you to transfer in. And they're telling them they can't, or they got backlogged, or just not going to do it. The teacher's like, I want this kid in my honors class.
Right, yeah, I would say that is something that we can definitely look at, but it would be a case-specific situation. I would say the majority of our principals are not saying that they're adding more kids to the honors classes if they want to be there. And frankly, if a parent pushed, they would be placed in there. It's possible that that class might have, well, again, I don't know what the size of the class, I don't know which class it is, but we usually add them in if parents do that. So if there's a specific instance that we need to look at, we can definitely talk to the principal and to that counselor. If we want more, we want them in honors classes.
That's off the DESI website, and it says for math class, it says 24 students and 850 square feet.
Yeah, it's a classroom size. So I can get you the size of our classrooms, but I know that some of our classrooms are above that size, even if we're
Right.
south. So that's why.
Most of them at 1 floor south are 750 square feet.
Well, I can get you a blueprint now.
I have them.
You have it?
I made them. Remember?
Well, I understand. So if we, but again, we've not had any fire marshal citation. The other thing is that DESI's standards have changed. MSEP 5 versus MSEP 4, some are resource, some are guidelines. So the guidelines were not enforced and have not been enforced for a while. Those guidelines, even the Title I spending, they weren't enforced at all for the past 4 or 5 years. So anything that was under DESI's guidelines for the past, since the budget has not been fully funded, since they reduced the funding from 100% or even 96% to 92%, those rules have not been in place.
My question to you this weekend was about capping it. If you could cap transfer students, and you said no. The number that I saw here was kind of what we thought it was anywhere around 4 1/4.
Right.
Right. The reason that came up was, unless I heard it wrong, the last board meeting, did you say you've gotten a call state saying, can you take another 150 to 300 or something like that?
Not that much. All right, so let me.
So I was a little bit like concerned about, I'm not saying that we should cap, but what concerns me is quick as the administration, the great job they're doing. I mean, can we react quick enough? You can react to 10 students here and there, but if one day, say, 150 students come into the system,
Right.
you know, what I mean is, there's gonna be classrooms that are oversized, okay, naturally,
Right.
but you know, how quick can we hire teachers? Meaning, will we miss a month of learning opportunity before we, you know what I mean, before we get the teachers hired, the classrooms made?
Right.
We're just kind of packing them in somewhere. That's kind of where my theme of all this was.
Right.
Not that I,
No, I appreciate your questions. They were really good. They were simple enough to be answerable, but became complex pretty quickly. And I had a hard time answering it. And so I gave you the legal answer. When you ask, is there a cap? I will always answer the law to say the law does not allow for a cap at this time. And that was my answer to that. So that's point one. We are accepting those who applied within the guideline time frame. So by definition, that kind of caps it off if they didn't apply.
Okay.
But, so that's the practical answer, because if we don't see that application, then we don't get paid and they haven't verified residency. And so that's the process that DESE submitted, and that's what we followed, which de facto caps it. But my legal answer is that law that says don't look at caps, don't look at capacity, just keep it rolling. And granted, that law has flaws, and legislators are looking at details.
well, let's say, I don't even know what the count is, but let's say, one of my hypotheticals again, you know, people get tired of driving to Melville.
Right.
So like 100 people quit in the middle of the school year and they all come here.
Right.
I mean, what happens then? Do we like restaff or?
Okay, so
how's that all
If
go?
I can ask, because I understand, if they wanted to transfer, they had to apply by the deadline.
Right.
So they can't do
I
that.
don't think there's a
All
way
right,
for that.
that's
to happen.
what I'm
Maybe law
asking.
people can help us on that.
We are in a
but
situation
my
where-
guess is,
That's what I'm kind of
if they
asking, just
decide that they're tired of
education.
going to Belleville, their only option is to go back where they came from, so
Okay.
to speak.
Well,
Is that right?
Is that right?
That's correct.
go ahead.
Okay. You know, DESE, that is DESE guidelines though, that's not what the statute says, the statute is just really broad. So
Right.
Dr. McCoy is correct on that point, but DESE, and even SEAM, which is the Children's Educational Alliance, who's been threatening to sue Melville, they've already gone public with saying, we believe very strongly that class sizes are important. We do not want transfer kids to cause class sizes that are too big, that's gonna hurt everybody's education. So they're not looking for to sue school districts that are just, you know, that someone like Ferguson Florissant who's already taken so many kids, we're not even on their radar. But my advice to all of my school districts, and none of them have been threatened to be sued, is if you stick by the DESE guidelines and you don't pick and choose which rules you wanna follow and which ones you don't, if you stick with those guidelines, I think you're really, really safe legally, and you're in a good spot. And that's what this district has done. Now, you know, you're getting close to where, you know, maybe there's not enough room to open another class or whatever, and you do have a right at that point to say, no, we can't take any more kids. It's gonna be detrimental to all kids if we continue to take kids, according to DESE's guidelines.
But according to their guidelines, that August 1st thing kind of caps it itself, because
Right.
it's, okay, that's kind of what I was asking.
Minus the ones that they said they lost. And even that is a cap, because when
Right.
they find it, the date has to match that time.
I was just trying to kind of plan for some unforeseen type of,
And that's why I appreciate it, because in all honesty and transparency, or thinking forwardly, a fight could occur, let's say, at either of the schools that are sending, let's say Normandy Riverview, or in Francis Howe, or in Melville, and it could cause for any of those four settings for parents to say, I'm done, I don't like the long bus ride, I want to try another option. And those are the tough ones. Those individuals applied, they were enrolled, they had preferences, first this, then that, and the other. it's gonna be a test case on that instance when it occurs. When those individuals have come here, we've said, usually have you done an application? So these people have already done an application. There has to be consistency among the schools to not swap students per se. So if there is a child at Millville right now, that they stay in Millville because the pay follows the child. And it's not about the pay, it's about the learning. I went on record saying that breaks in learning is bad for achievement and bad for children. So if they switch schools mid-year, that's not good. Different curriculum, different teacher, different setting, different norms. But it's a test that has not occurred yet.
Even with that though, I would think it'd be somewhat minimal. It wouldn't be like a 200 student test for their.
Right, yes.
So
We are not sending a message out there that our doors are always open, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now the last legal question, and I get this asked a lot, is where the last meeting you had put $500,000 as possibly having to transfer for some of the transfer students.
That's correct.
And my question is, since the transfer students already have an option for transportation, could a taxpayer of this community sue by saying, no, you're not using my dollars when there's already an option in place? I'm just wondering.
Let me say a few things. That number, that number $500,000 was an anticipated amount of what we would spend up to if we provided transportation for 425 students or thereabout. So it's anticipated for planning purposes. We also know that each child here comes with $10,600 of tuition that they're bringing into our district from Normandy and from Riverview. So they're coming with money from their taxpayer base. The law describes how that's for tuition for school and doesn't include transportation, to your point. And so the whole notion of, a person can sue you for anything, but whether they would win or not for us using Normandy and Riverview money to keep our attendance high, to not slip from accreditation points in a desperate situation, is one that I think that most judges and lawyers would have a field day arguing it, but be thrown out of court because there's no tort, there's no harm done to the child or the parent who's here paying.
But I could see a snowball effect. I could see, me calling and saying, all my cars are broken, I need you. I live here. I need to pick my kids up in a bus. You could just.
And in most cases.
And I'm just saying, I don't know. It's where that slippery slope kind of, and as far as the perception in the community, with Prop A and everything else, something I've already heard about it. So that's why I'm bringing it up.
I appreciate you that. On this note, I need the board and the others to be advocates for clear understanding. If there's a parent that's a resident and they need help, they should call us, because we have added residents to buses from a range of either they pay $1 per day to ride, which is $180 for a whole school year, or $90, or they pay nothing and we add them onto route because the bus is packed in the mud.
Right.
We did that. The last student, I can even name the student's name, but I won't because I'm telling, but it was a kindergartner at Deshane Elementary School who lives a half a mile from the school. The mother didn't want the kindergartner to walk half a mile. She's on a route with no cost. So in those instances, we've been very liberal and great servants of our community. We're just trying to keep that standard there as a possibility for now a new set of students who have an extra set of barriers. But it's also with in mind, they come with their own money, and with in mind, we can't lose any traction on the great job of being fully accredited yet again for 2013 and certified over the weekend. I said our accreditation has repeatedly been affirmed. We're accredited for 2013, and we're literally accredited for 2005 based off of 1 point, being less than 1 point away from 98 points under the new rules that don't start in 2015. But my point is that we're so on that line, 98 points is what it takes, and we're at 97. that I can't allow Normandy or Riverview students to have a slip by 3 points backwards on just by the attendance piece for new rules coming up.
On attendance, does the attendance count for our school district, or does it
It's
count
all
for
right.
their school district?
Everything is
Because
ours.
they're the ones receiving the money
Everything is
on
ours.
attendance.
Everything is
Well-
ours.
Well, for funding purposes, it transfers back to the sending school district. The receiving district reports it
That's
as a
right.
non-resident
The data
student.
is ours.
And then DESI transfers that back to the sending school district to determine funding.
Right, the funding, they get to choose.
But for
who pays us.
accountability, it
We're-
does stay with the
It's
school,
all our
the
accountability.
school district.
They're gonna be.
Say that again, I couldn't hear you.
For accountability, it stays with the receiving
Oh,
school
For a
district. But
standard.
for funding
That's right.
purposes, they're doing this
Money goes
transfer
over.
back and forth thing. So for funding, that's why you only get funding if Riverview or Normandy has said, yes, this is our kid. This is a kid who lives in our school district, and therefore, and we verified that to our satisfaction, so we will pay for this kid. And so it's done by hour, it's not done by day, it's done by hour. We have to report attendance, and that's how we get paid. So if they don't show up, we don't get paid for that kid.
Right.
So it's reported as a non-resident student on our reports.
That's
It's
right.
transferred back to Riverview Gardens mainly here to determine the funding that they have to pay for each student. But for accountability purpose, it stays with us, so.
So we're 100% accountable for the education of the students. And Normandy and Riverview are 100% empowered to say, we will, well, that the funding has come to us through DESI and we'll write you the check. However, DESI's guidelines say that they're 2 months late, then DESI will circumvent their budgets and then give every district the money that they're owed.
So this can't be, no offense to the present company, but this can't be the first group of people that have the discussion about, so one entity, being DESI, it's saying, okay, these kids have to go 5 miles or 25 miles or whatever. And that's harder, it takes longer, there's traffic, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And so attendance could suffer.
That's right.
That's probably a logical sort of assumption, right? But we're not gonna fund anything to mitigate that,
Right.
right?
That's correct.
So would the plan be then to illustrate the challenge?
By all means.
You know, and then say, okay,
Here's what we have
where's
to do.
where's
Here's
the funding?
That's exactly right. Everything we do to help a child get here becomes documentation for the flaws of the law, the actions that DESI should write, the need to change the statute on August 1, all that becomes documentation. And
With no guarantee that you never get a penny back.
no guarantee that you'll ever get the penny back if you sue. The only guarantee is, again, what DESI's saying of forcing payments, and that's until money runs out. And then there's been a request from the commissioner.
But that's educational money, there's no transportation money.
Well, you can use the tuition that they pay us for anything.
It's unrestricted.
It's unrestricted. They have not tied our hands. So the money that Normandy and Riverview will pay the district is unrestricted. So we just happen to be in the location that's right in between the two of them.
Right.
And with a small enough number to actually allot, small enough number in comparison to our district size of 11,000, to actually allot it for transportation. If the trip from their house to here is only 5 miles, 6 miles, it's less costly than it will be to Parkway, to Brittany, to.
All right, so
So-
good thing you're a math guy. So if we did the quick math,
Right.
how much would we be, what's the difference between what we'd be spending on our student, our residential student, disregarding transportation, just the pre-transportation total? And then how much would we have for these students if we used a portion of that for transportation? See what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
So what-
Totally understand. All right, so.
Is there a difference?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a complex question. So you're saying that if we pay for transportation at $500,000, then if 100% of the money is paid out of $4.8 million.
Yeah, just make that assumption.
Then basically, you have still remaining $4 million in an account in our district budget to spend to all students, which then essentially closes the deficit prior to that we've been talking about, because the deficit was at, there was $3 million that we were gonna spend on our.
Right, and I don't wanna go into production
Right.
mentality, but like,
Right.
at a unit cost, you know, it's at a student cost.
Student by student.
You know, how much do we spend on students currently without transportation? And then we take these new great students that we're getting, that we're happy to add, and if we have a chunk of money, and if we have to take out X
Right.
for transportation, how much does that leave? And
Yeah.
you may not be able to answer
Yeah,
that,
it's
this is
essentially the ADA, and Laura may have the ADA memorized. I know that the ADA.
It's over 11,000.
It's like, so it's $11,300 ADA, and what tuition is $10,600 if you're at elementary, at secondary, 10,800 at elementary. So the difference between those two numbers, we're talking about $600 difference, because the net for our child without transportation, well, that ADA includes transportation.
It includes transportation.
So it's a hard comparison. They forced us to take transportation out for Riverview and Normandy, and it made it $10,600.
That's why I made it less than
That's
what we
right.
spend.
And we spend 11,000, about 300. So it's factoring in, transportation. So I guess the short answer is, with 400 students that we have, there's a midpoint. We're in a sweet spot. It's the same sweet spot we were talking about in a closed session meeting of how much would be ideally a sweet spot if we would do something of this nature, 350. It's still in that zone where it's not costing extra. Well, it's not costing a lot extra for instruction. Now, I have to admit, if we go towards those desirables and we add the projections that Amy made for classrooms now, we're looking at $622,000 of teacher additions, adding 10 teachers essentially, which would put us at desirables at the elementary level in all instances, but spending $622,000. If we, and then in addition to that, that's including also 6 aides on top of 10 teachers.
at 600,000.
It's still the same amount.
So that's only $100,000 more than the transportation.
That's correct.
Right, so as I can clarify,
That's correct.
this transportation is a hypothetical at this point.
That's correct too.
We
Because it's playing.
haven't committed that we're gonna spend 500,000.
That's
Well,
correct.
no, the board hasn't committed to that.
No, I mean, he hasn't either.
Well, it was in the paper,
Is it what paper?
in the
Well,
Post-Dispatch.
Our presentation was that we made, but it was that we're anticipating that, and it's not that we approved it, and an RFP is coming out. We haven't taken action on that.
Well, I know, because the board hasn't voted
So,
on it.
well, we haven't even got the RFP yet, if I'm not mistaken. The RFP is getting posted, so administration hasn't taken action. What we're doing is saying that there are 15 church buses to help with immediate needs, and that we're thinking ahead.
So say we didn't transport anybody, okay? I'm just trying to understand how this works. And you want, we go to the state and we basically show them that our attendance dropped because of transfer students.
That's right.
And it doesn't matter, right?
Right. They would say you are held accountable by that number you got.
And yet, just for clarification, they're not giving us the money to transport them.
They're not forcing Riverview and Normandy to give transportation money.
But we're responsible for transporting.
That's correct, that's correct. And that was by the judge's decree. That's correct.
Wow.
You're 100% right.
Well,
And that goes back to some,
we're not responsible, that would be a
No,
voluntary thing.
we're not responsible for transporting, we're just responsible for educating, but we get held accountable.
You're responsible for attendance.
You're responsible for
Well,
It's
attendance.
not,
that's kind of
you're not
the same thing.
responsible for how they attend.
That's right, that's right. Yeah, so your analogy is still right, which.
well, I know I just said it a little different, but I guess that goes back to some of the emails I was sending on, and I think Rob, championed some of this about it's really walking a fine line between that word local control, I mean, we're kind of in boxes, is how I see it.
And if I can say to that point, our boxes are oath of office, because we swore to uphold the Constitution and the laws of the state of Missouri. And since this is the Constitution and the laws of the state of Missouri, we're stuck following the Constitution and the laws of the state of Missouri.
That's true, and our policy says the same too.
I mean,
But
and we're
transportation,
uncomfortable about it.
transportation isn't part of the law, so again, that would be voluntary.
Right, exactly, it's something we said, and Dr. McCoy is thinking this is a possibility that we may need to do in order to maintain our accreditation. And I think all of us would agree accreditation has to be item number one for our community.
Now the parents though, I mean, again, I wasn't through the application process. Parents that did elect to come here did know that they were supposed to transport their kids. I mean, that's covered with them.
Yeah, that's,
Okay.
I mean, to the degree that they saw everything that was on the TV, yes. Yes. and-
No, I
and to
mean,
the
not on
degree-
TV, I'm
and-
talking
and-
about when they do
and
their
when they get
application.
there, they're told
Okay.
that there's no bus services is available. Yeah, they're told that transportation is not provided.
The same way as if you were a seventh grader that lived across the
Right.
street from the school.
That's exactly right. They're definitely. Right, so, but I think the bigger point at hand for me is, I know that you are elected officials in charge of governance for the school district, and I want you to understand and agree that accreditation is paramount to everything. What's best for our children and for what's best for you maintaining your position, because of the Senate Bill 125, a district without accreditation in 30 days can have elected board be overtaking the district's unaccredited. So accreditation is paramount for the kids, it's paramount for the community, and it's paramount for local control, Scott. You know, that's in part. And so knowing that that's the case, we are so close to being fully accredited in 2015 rules that we can't allow for anybody to stop us from that. But right now, in all honesty, we're 1 point from being accredited in 2015 rules against that 5. Now, granted, they don't start in 2015, and we've jumped by 8 points since the last time. It was 90.2, 90.5, now it's 97, and it happened. But it's too close for comfort.
Well, I hope you make no assumptions on my question.
No.
I'm trying to kind of grasp all this as simplistic.
I'm not making assumptions. I'm just
I'm
wanting
just
make it
trying to
clear the
understand
focus.
where all this
Right. My
plays
focus-
in. It sounds like, even from the interest of one of our next agenda items about board meetings, it just seems like, since a lot of this is kind of mandated, we could, I mean, how can I put this? There's really nothing to question, like the cap, right? I said, since it's mandated, there's no reason to even talk about something like that. That's kind of what I'm kind of saying here. I'm not articulating it well. There's a lot of things that areas we may have thought about going into as a board, even discussing or implementing, and heck, it's way over our head anyway. That's kind of what I'm saying. I mean, way over our head at the Supreme Court level.
Right.
So,
Your point is well taken that we're in an unprecedented era where more things are coming from that level, be it the governor, the commissioner,
Right, that's what I
the
mean.
Supreme Court, than
That's-
ever before.
that's what I'm saying.
That's very true. Very
That's what I
true. That's true.
Can you give us a little light on what happens with Normandy when they do run out of money?
Sure.
Just what's that gonna do to the kids in Normandy? I guess that's the biggest question.
The quick and simple answer is from our meet from a meeting on as recent as Saturday. It's been stated from some Normandy individuals that they just need resources. Otherwise, February is about the time frame in which they will not have funding, which makes us plan forward thinking. We have 106 students from Normandy. 106 students from Normandy means that we're getting $10,600 per student, so approximately 1.1 million, 1.2 million. So conservatively speaking, you can bank on getting half of that, $500,000, and then not the rest. Whereas we have 330 students from Riverview, and you can bank on getting the whole year for that, which is the bulk of the money, which is close to $4 million, right at it. And so for our purposes of plan for not getting $500,000. Then what happens to Normandy when that closes? Well, when that happens, Chris Castro has already asked the legislators if they would give Normandy a loan to make it through the rest of the school year. There's debates on whether that will happen or not. Currently, there doesn't seem to be a lot of support for that. So that triggers a statutory right for the state board to merge them, split them up, dissolve them, and it's pretty clear in evidence and has been discussed by groups, not to be kind of vague, but groups in that list that we're talking about, that the situation with Wellston and Normandy did not work, therefore a repeat of that would not be sound. So you could be looking at an alternative model. What is that alternative model? It could be looking at districts taking sections of Normandy, or it could be, if you had to do that, or you could be looking at a bailout. You could also be looking at a chartering of some of the schools and not having any of the neighboring schools take them. But those are the options. What is known is that an RP was done in July, due on July 26th to the commissioner's office, to have a consulting firm from outside give advice to the commissioner on the best strategy for both Kansas City Public Schools as well as Normandy Riverview. Commissioner is currently waiting for making that announcement of who and how long and how much, because funding is an issue at the state level, where she's raising funds for that RFP, and we're talking significant funds. But once that happens, you'll have the person who will be guiding Desi to answer that question. And right now, we have an RFP and some fundraising and a request for funds from legislators. I'm planning for the worst and hoping for the best in all these issues. I mean, that's what the transportation line item was, is planning for the worst and hoping for the best. That's what these discussions with the commissioner and others are about, talking about what we are able to do to support what we're not able to do. Taking over Normandy schools, it will be a challenge for Ferguson, Florissant to take over any of their schools. And so that's something that has to be clear. That's not our desire, not my desire. I don't think it's anybody's desire. So we've been supporting them and trying to stay open or save some resources if we can team up on ways. Not talking about taking less tuition, but teaming up to help them with PD, professional development, things like that, partnering on existing structures. So, but you're looking at a partial merger / partial takeover with charter schools or a consulting company to give other ideas. The companies that she solicited it from, she mentioned Tennessee, Michigan, and Louisiana in the RFP. And those states, Louisiana did choice, the achievement school district, and so a lot of privatization, school choice, charter school options. That was Louisiana. In Michigan, it was an achievement school district. In Louisiana, it was a recovery school district after Katrina. So the Michigan district did all the low performing schools in the state that made them one school district called Achievement. That's another possibility. And then the last one was Tennessee, which just did a straight merger of Shelby County and Memphis, Tennessee, which is kind of like the Wellston thing, but with a few nuances, like Wellston and Normandy's situation. So that's as far as we can see as a thinking of what Desi's looking at. And then, of course, legislators will have their own set of rules. Legislators are doing a bus tour on the week of September 23rd through 26th. Transfers at the top of their list. They tour across the state, starting at Springfield, then going to Western University, and then going to Cape Girardeau, and then across the rest of the state. They asked me if I would ride on the bus to give them some information in between stops, as well as be at it. I will be present at the local locations, but I don't think I'm riding to other places. But the point is, then after that week, they'll be meeting on this topic as an entire legislative week on October 1st. So there's an interim committee doing the bus tour, then the whole group is meeting on October 1st. And then in October, they're going to do the rest of the tour in other parts of the country. And they'll have their own, for the rest of the state, they'll have their own set of solutions, which will differ from Desi, we're believing. That's about as far as we can see. Yeah.
Well, thank you for clarifying that. When we left the board meeting on Wednesday, I got the impression that you were a little giddy about possibly taking over the Normandy School District. And for me, with the students coming in, that you have students coming from Normandy Riverview who want a greater opportunity, a better opportunity for education. And we have this massive influx of kids coming in. I was questioning our ability to be able to handle that. And then the fact that we are still striving, not only we maintain accreditation, but we're trying to add to it, that taking on a whole new school district who's unaccredited would kill us.
Right.
Literally. I mean, and I had people council members, business owners thinking, North County in itself is struggling, and this is the last thing that we need the Ferguson Florissant School District to do. So I appreciate your clarification on that.
I have a question about the children. We, as a school district, believe that we're a family and work and strive to be a family. And several years ago, we redistricted the entire district, set different boundaries so that the children could be in their home schools. And so that, like, at the time, before we did redistrict, we had children in Kinloch going to school at Halls Ferry, and they couldn't make events such as a science fair, They would maybe stay after school, but then they'd have to walk home because they didn't have transportation, and they couldn't be part of their school community. And then there were also children that didn't feel part of the communities of the school, so they didn't take as good a care of it as if they would have lived in the neighborhood. So I guess my concern is, and that the second part wasn't my concern. My concern is that these children are part of the school, and that when there's a spaghetti supper, walking from Riverview, because I'm over there, is not going to be possible. And that's going to make it hard for them to be part of the community. And the two little girls that I'm talking about were first and second graders at the time, and it was February, cold winter, and they should be allowed to be at their school functions, but their parents worked, and there was no transportation. And sometimes it's been parents have haven't even had transportation. So I'm really concerned about the social, psychological issue this is putting on our children, all of them, from Riverview as well as from Ferguson Florissant.
Thank you, I appreciate that. That's my heart too. That was the reason why I was anticipating using $500,000 for a third-party company to be contracted using the tuition funds that come with them. Because that same concern of A, wanting that school, and B, wanting to destroy any barriers being a total part of our system. And right now, that has not been done. It's a plan, it's a thought. At some point, I hope you get to talk enough and you get to consider enough to really make that barrier be destroyed that you just mentioned, to have that come to life. If that's something that we use the tuition money for, transportation, then that would not be an issue. If we don't, then it's going to be case by case. Today, Larry LaRue gave $20, and I gave some money out of my own pocket to allow for a parent to get on the bi-state bus and to really give their children bus fare for the rest of this week. She lives in Normandy, and her children go to Florida North, and the bi-state bus does give them there $3 per child for both ways. So $25 got her, the rest of this week for both children. So that's, it's the greatest act of the teachers and administrators who care to that extent that's making that not be an issue today. And I would say that because it will simply be $4 million in our savings account if we don't otherwise spend it, or we could spend it on making our whole district be more the desirables, but we still need to fill our reserves and loans scale. But I would say that transportation for kids is right high on that list. However it happens, whether it means we fundraise and ask Express Scripts to, instead of get a tax abatement for $300,000 for the new building that they put in the paper too, that's for ITs and accountants, they give that $300,000 for a purpose or even this purpose. That's one of the discussions I had today with one of the community members in the audience and so forth. However the money comes to do it, we just need to do what's right for our kids to make sure that those barriers are destroyed, even if it's not from the tuition money. The point is, we gotta make plans if we're gonna treat each child as our own, make a way out of no way. Fundraising, pay sales, and even parents. At the last board meeting, one parent said that she would pick up a family and bring them to school every day. That's the method. Put on the website, match a person, it's personal liability. I'm just saying make a way. It doesn't have to be one way or 10 ways that we just mentioned. It can be any way. But the
2 appointments and get them around. And we've got many, many children on Medicaid. Would Medicaid help with call a ride, or would they help with logistic care, or any of those things to help get the kids back and forth?
That's a great idea. We will look into that. I know Amy has the most experience with the call ride, and it's usually sporadic. So that while they will do it a few times, they won't do it every day.
Well, if you set it up, they'll do it every day. You just have to call a week ahead. So you would call on Monday for,
That's true.
and there's another group called Logistic Care that also takes Medicaid residents. So maybe there's something out there for the children to get them, even if it's not getting them back and forth to school, maybe there's some way to get them to the spaghetti supper or to the science fair.
That's true. We will definitely look into that.
Is there any further discussion?
Question about school selections. So parents approached me, we said about a year ago, as a board, we set policy that we were going to limit the in-district transfers coming in. And I had a friend of mine who's very angry with me for the very fact that her kids have gone to one school and now her smallest child can't go to that school. And it's because of that very policy, and I explained it to her. But they're saying now with the transfer students coming in, it seems like now they're being told that they couldn't transfer to that school because there's no space. And now they're showing that a lot of transfer kids are coming in.
No overages of residents have occurred at this time. We've not done any overages, which means that no residential parent has been told they can't go to their home school because of any child, not to mention transfer students. So there's not one overage that's occurred.
But I don't think
Their
that was the point. It was, he
It
said
wasn't their
homeschool,
home
that's not
school,
right.
because they lived in the central school, they lived in Vogue.
They live in both, they got a.
You might remember this family, as we go through, because it kind of prompted us, we had to vote on it. But their children had gone through, so they had a small child who just started kindergarten vote, and they were saying, no, now you can't go, you have to go back to central. And now they come back saying,
Right, all right, so
what's up with that?
So in essence, a transfer request to an out-of-resident school is denied, it sounds like in this instance. Those denials have not been on the basis of transfer students at all. In the process of transfer students, we kept spots for residents prior to, we had kept seats open for people who haven't even asked to come so that they can come. That denial was based off of the process of the principal reviewing the reason and the other principal reviewing the reason and saying, one of them saying no, or both of them saying yes and the director saying no. It had nothing to do with transfers.
No, this happened a couple years ago that he's talking about, so it's nothing new. But I think if I can help, I think what he's saying is that we don't let our own residents transfer to whatever school they want. They have to go to the school in which they live, in which their home is. And so we're letting other people come in out of the district to go to whatever school they want. But our kids can't go to whatever school they want.
That didn't happen.
Do the parents get to choose what school they go to?
No, they may ask for a school, but they don't get, they don't get the school they ask for, they get the school that has open spaces. Some may get what they ask for because there's space available, but I thought Rob said that this year, one kid was told to go back to their home school and not able to go to both.
It was either this year or last year that it took place, but it was still the question that came up
So
in regards to the transfer coming in.
So last year would have been because we did have this very discussion in votes about trying to get every child to their home school, nearest school to their home. And that is true, that's been the goal. We did make like 30, 40 exceptions to that for reasons like this. I've already been established in this school, been there for 3 years, and I don't want to move now just because of a decision now, so your grandfather in. That has occurred this school year. And then to the point that Leslie mentioned about how can a student from outside bump away a resident from going to the school of their choice? How can a non-resident normally get a school of choice and a resident not? Normally students and Liberty students didn't all get schools of choices, and none of them are their home schools. That's the issue there. None of them are their home school, none of them, and we didn't do a carte blanche. Make a choice and we put you there. We didn't do that. and when I saw your hand up.
Yeah, I do want to speak to the overages. It is our goal to place every student that is in their attendance area in that school that's within that area. So for that reason, we have not placed overages outside of their home school, and we're waiting to make sure that they can attend their resident school.
Right, right.
And when Mr. Martinez asked what's different this year, that will be the difference, because whenever we had overages, we would assign them to wherever there was a space in the past, but now, this year, we haven't done that because we want those overages to be in their home school. And then with transfers, if you're in Ferguson Florissant schools and you did not meet the criteria, then the principals, as Dr. McCoy said, would say, no, they did not meet the criteria. And then there were extenuating circumstances where I would do an administrative transfer for those students.
Right, definitely, but it didn't have any transfers. Yeah.
I think you were looking for some support in terms of accreditation earlier. Yes, of course, getting accreditation is important. I'm not entirely convinced that $500,000 on transportation achieves that, completely, because we don't know, we just don't know. Gotta be at the bus stop, and other kids have to show up as well, so there's a lot of moving pieces. So I'd have to see some more, personally, I'd have to see some more data. And one of those things in concert with that is if that comes back, to see that number, that student number of how much that would leave us per child compared to how much that leaves us to an in-district student, just so we can have a comparison. And it may only be a few $100s, but
Definitely, we can do that.
Well, jumping on his idea, I'd like to see what research shows taking that $500,000 and higher tenured teachers might bring up the achievement.
Well, that's another good point. I mean,
Because, the good thing is, it sounds like the money either way would be used for, our accreditation.
Right.
It just, would it be better on wheels moving, or our teachers that are
to achieve an
to
academic
achieve
standard.
academically, so it'd be interesting to see.
I guess the question would be, obviously there's an opportunity cost there. You do one, you can't do the other. So, or you split it.
The beauty is
Well,
that
it
that's
happens.
such a small, in the scope of the money that we're entitled to get, it's a small amount on both ends. You can do both and then some. And we're talking $4.8 million of tuition money that we're entitled to. And out of $4.8 million, even if you back out $500,000 that normally may not be able to pay because they may stop to get away, you're still talking $4.2 million. So out of $4.2 million, $500,000 is a little bit over 10% of that on both ends, the teacher end.
Sure, but
and
I think the way I would look at it, just in terms of, and correct me if it's not exactly what you're saying, if you looked at the standards that the district, that we're not meeting.
Which I know very well.
Right,
Right.
and I said, Dr. McCoy, I'm gonna write you a check for $500,000. And you have to throw it at one of these that we're not meeting. If I do that, can you make one of those?
Well,
Would $500,000 make the difference?
Oh, I appreciate that comment. I feel like
That's great.
And that can be rhetorical,
No.
because the camera's on.
No, my answer would be that we as a team have been miracle workers to actually do just that, to bring it from 7 to 9 and 9 for the past 3 years since I've been here. And attendance is the highest it's ever been in this district at 94.7%, which made us meet attendance for the first time ever last year, because it was the low hanging fruit. So I went for what was doable. We also did a study, Farhad study, that showed the effects on class sizes and the smaller class size. And since Farhad's sitting here, I'll let him give you the 3 lines on what that study showed on class size, which is to your point of adding teachers. What did the study show in district and external?
For all intents and purposes, a smaller class size not necessarily to produce the higher achievement level, to put it simply.
That's So it makes community members feel better, but it doesn't make the students. And then you can cite John Hattie's work, which is a meta study nationally that says the same thing through national data. John Hattie's study says the same thing that our Ferguson Florence study shows. So I can give you reports and email them within an hour, and all our principals read John Hattie and his research that says really the bang for the buck is in transportation more than class size if student achievement is measured. Now, I'm a realist. We have community members that we it's kids and community. It will make classrooms feel better for teachers, feel better for parents to have small classes. That's all real, and that's a real thing that we will be putting money and time into every day. But the data shows student achievement, kids have to show up. And
Jolie, yeah, I agree, but I still think there are other things other than just more teachers and smaller class size that you could put,
that's very true.
that money toward as well.
Very true.
You obviously identify too, so.
That's true. That's very true.
And I think it's fair to say we're going to have to spend some of this $4 million.
It's fair to say,
The
yeah.
idea that this $4 million is just going to go to the bottom line
That's
isn't going
right.
to happen.
That's
I
one.
mean, that's just reality.
That's true.
And one way or another, we're going to have to provide services to these kids, and some of it's going to cost some money.
That's very true.
How much, we don't know yet, but
We can give you good estimates even right now. If we were to do grade A work, grade B work, grade C work, we can give you estimates from, again, $1 million for grade C work, which is what we're talking right now, as projections. Grade C work means 1 million, 1.2 million means 10 more teachers, 6 more aides, and transportation, and that's 1.2 million right now. That's, in my opinion, a C level, because it gives you transportation and smaller class size. Anything above that is more than all the other districts are doing. I'll say that much. and it's grade A work and grade B work.
Melvin had a really nice video, I saw.
When you talk about aides, that was a question of mine. Are they full-time or part-time, or are they mixtures?
There are mixtures.
Yes, sir.
We have grade level aides that are 7 hours. They follow the teacher's schedule. We have another category, which is title funded, which are called instructional aides. Those are 7 hours as well, and they support the whole building, whether it's small group instruction with interventions or enrichment. And then we have a third category called building support aides. And so they support the operations of the school through playground and cafeteria supervision, office help, clinic aid, and library. So they're the multi-purpose. That category, the building support aid, is the category in which they were reduced down to 25 hours per week. And that was because of our budget reductions.
Okay. Wasn't that also tied to the healthcare?
Healthcare as well, yes.
Always a combination.
Yes, it was a dual role.
The other thing I'm kind of hearing about is that maybe an email out or something would help people who think that they went down below 30 hours because of the healthcare, or having problems with, like, some are at 29 hours and some are at 25 or whatever. Yeah,
That would help.
they were just kind of thinking that it was all done because of healthcare, but I guess the other hours you were talking about the budget reductions.
Right, and I will.
Well, I'm just saying that's what I'm hearing.
Well, I
Like,
will
well, why does
pull-
this person? We're both part-time. This person works 29 hours. This one works.
I'll pull the letter that I put in their notice of employment, because they did have a specific letter that I sent to them in April. So I'll look, and I believe I did reference budget reductions.
Oh,
So-
they get that every year. Is that what that is? I
They
just,
get-
I'm looking at it as people who already worked in the district for years. A lot of them come to me understanding that the Healthcare Act forced them to go down below 30 hours. But now you've got that, tug of war amongst different groups. They're like, well, I get 29, I get 25, or whatever. I don't know if that's clearly articulated. I don't know. I'm
So
sure
they
you
get
did.
they get a notice of employment every year.
Oh, they do every
And
year.
in the building support aids letters, I sent a separate letter referencing the budget reductions and reduction of hours. That's what I
gotcha.
wanna pull to
Okay.
verify that.
So we can definitely put a note out. It's verified.
All right, are we done with transfers? I think we had a great discussion on transfers. I want to thank Somersby for coming and helping out tonight. I think it cleared the air on a lot of things that we had issues with, so I hope we all came out of this with a better understanding of what's going on. I think that was to start. Wanted to know how everything's working. So, I'd like to take about a 5-minute break and come back and talk about